Just hit that one.
I got you. All right. I'm Bubba Simmons, a farmer from near Hollandale, Mississippi, which is south of Leland in Washington County. And this is a picture of our farm, and I included it to just kind of show you that most of our fields that you'll see north of that highway are nice square blocks that are relatively easy to manage, we thought. And then below the highway you'll see some more irregular shaped fields, and I'll talk about that a little later. Right now we farm corn and soybeans, and I know this is a corn talk, but as far as I'm concerned, and other than some timing issues, we're irrigating corn and soybeans exactly the same. We're using the same tools, the surge valves, pipe planter, moisture sensors. We're using the same theory really to irrigate both. We've been using polypipe a long time. We were rice farmers till about 3 years ago, and I remember polypipe, I guess, when we first started using it, it was some pretty inferior stuff, pretty bad stuff to work with, but we used it. And up until I started working with Jason, we really didn't have a plan for what we were doing. We used one size of polypipe because I didn't know they made other sizes of polypipe. We used 15 10 mil polypipe on every field. I remember we bought a hole puncher one time that came with all these different sizes with it, and I threw all of them away except for the one that I thought looked like what we should be using. But anyway, I considered us to be pretty progressive and efficient farmers. We've been these square fields. I mean, you know, it didn't take me long, I thought, to figure out what size hole I needed to punch in those, and I thought we had it down. So I'd heard of faucet, maybe from coming to one of these meetings 15 years ago. Faucet's been out how long? 30 years or something like that. And I even downloaded the program, and I went to Mississippi State and did not major in rocket science, and I had trouble figuring out what all that stuff was. I just didn't really want to commit the time to learn it either. So anyway, Jason Kreutz comes along because we've got a crisis in the Mississippi Delta. That's why we hired him. We've got a crisis there with our water supply, and he comes in, and you heard him this morning. He's pretty confident. At the time, I don't know why he was confident, because he didn't have any data to back up what he was talking about, but he was still confident. I might even use the word abrasive.
They don't talk about it like I'm not here.
Some of his talks, but I'm kind of an abrasive guy too, I guess. And we hit it off, and we decided to work with Jason. Our farm's just about 20 minutes from the station there at Stonewall. So we worked together, and we started irrigating, and it didn't take long for me to realize that this pipe planter side of things, I still didn't know about the surge valves and the moisture sensors. It didn't take me long to realize that the pipe planter side of things worked pretty good. So we went through that year, and I even bought some of these, what I thought at the time were really expensive moisture sensors. Very expensive, I thought, surge valves. I went to a conference, maybe it was one of these things, 10 years ago, and a guy was talking about surge valves. He said he had 50 surge valves that he was using, and I thought, well, that's a good way to waste some money. I can't believe, you know, how lazy can you be that you need a surge valve? I thought at the time, how lazy can you be that you need a surge valve to swap that water back and forth? I mean, that's how little I knew about what a surge valve did, and how really little I understood what the plan was. You know, I mentioned that our fields are typically square, and we thought we knew what we were doing. That certainly was not the case. The most important thing I learned, I think, and what I would encourage you to do if you're not using pipe planter now or faucet or whatever, all of that information can be, that it takes to create a plan, can be done right now when you go home. And the way our farm worked, we didn't do much planting in the winter, and we sat around. Maybe we got the planters ready, and then Planters got ready, we went to the field, we planted, and there's always something to do, always something to do. And then those hot days came along, like Jason was talking about, and we rushed to get the poly pipe out. Just one size, remember, everywhere, so it didn't matter where it went. And we put it out, and as soon as we got the poly pipe out and it hadn't rained, we turned the well on because we already had the pipe out. Might as well go ahead and get over it one time while we got the pipe out, because we had a lot of fields to get over. And then on the tail end of irrigating, there was never a question about, were we going to irrigate that last time, because we already had the poly pipe out. We acted like diesel was free, and we just watered the last time. But we've come a long way from that type of thinking, I believe. The most important thing, I feel like, if I had to get rid of one of those tools, it would not be pipe planter. That's the most important tool we have. Busted pipes, burst pipe, whatever you want to call it. We used to always think that we got some bad pipe from Delta Plastics. You know, this must be another batch of that bad pipe. It's split, it's busted. We were busting pipe every morning because we just didn't know what size pipe should have been there. We didn't know what our flow was. We didn't know what size holes to punch. It was a disaster. I don't know how we made it through it, but now we know what size goes where. We know what size holes to punch, and we continue. You know, we had those irregular shaped fields. This is another thing I think. Anyway, all of this said, I don't have data to back up what we've done. I don't know how many bushels we've increased, but I know we have increased our yield. I can see that. I can do the math after we ship everything out. I know that our yield continues to increase, I feel like, because of this. I know we're burning less diesel too. I mean, that first year even, I could tell the truck wasn't coming around quite as often, but we continue to fine tune each year. Those irregular shaped fields, we thought they were not really good furrow fields, not really good fields to use poly pipe on, so we would flood irrigate them. And now with pipe planter, even if it's a downhill slope with rows getting shorter and shorter, we know we can make a plan. And I think that's improved our yield. This right size of poly pipe, that was big for me to realize. And I can't believe I'm pretty thick-headed, I guess, not to realize that I should have been using different sizes of pipe. I think they sell about 7 different sizes, but right now on our farm we're using 12, 15, 18, and 22. And 22-inch poly pipe is about the size of this table when it's full of water. It's a big old nasty looking thing. But the flow rate on our wells goes from 900 gallons to 2,700 gallons. And that flow rate and what I call the length of run, which is really the length of the pipe, that helps determine what size pipe you need in your plan. So when we order poly pipe now, I know that I need 10 pallets of this, 4 pallets of this, 6 pallets of this, because I got a plan in place.
Is that the same every year, basically?
Unless we fine tune and figure it out that maybe we need to go down to 12 instead of 15. But yeah, now that that you've done the work, unless you move dirt or your flow changes drastically, it pretty much stays the same. Yeah, but we continue to try to fine tune it every year. So I can't say enough good things about pipe planter and computerized hole selection. That's very important. Most important thing we do. We added soil moisture sensors, and really, you know, I've got on there the cheapest is not always the best option. And then in a later slide, I've got you get what you pay for. But those watermarks, we bought a lot of those the first couple of years, and I think they work really good. They don't seem to work as good for me as a Syntec or something like that, because I may not do as good a job acclimating the sensors and installing them. I'm okay if I'm drilling 1 hole for that Syntec, but when I get to drilling 4 holes, there's just a little more room for error. I remember Chris came to a meeting, this is how little I knew about it, we had a bunch of these watermark sensors, and you talked about how to get the sensor, prepare the sensor to be installed. And I soaked them in a bucket of water for a few hours, and we stuck them in the hole. just didn't really understand and know. So I have a little better luck with the Syntec type sensors. Another thing I'll say about soil moisture sensors is that second point, they're no good at all if you're not using the data to make decisions. So we'd install these things and not trust them, or they didn't work right, and my neighbors would have them. I never did this. I don't think I did this. But they would take a 5-gallon bucket of water out there and dump it over the top of them just to see if they could see it go up. Remember that? That was quite common the first year because we didn't trust these things. We'd buy these damn things and put them in, and then when the corn started drawing up a little bit, we didn't worry about that number 49 on the moisture sensor. We cut the well on because that thing wasn't right. We're not going to let our corn burn up. We've got the poly pipe out, all that good stuff. So don't put them in if you're not going to use the data to make decisions. And you'll figure out which one works good for you. I've got on there, you get what you pay for, and that's probably not really accurate. Those watermark sensors with the data logger were about $600. I don't know if they've gone up or down, whatever. You can take that tool, install it properly, and get the information that you need. I kind of like these type sensors a little more. They're a little more expensive, but maybe I'll say I've got more confidence in them because there's less error for me to make in installing them. Surge valves. Jason came out with all this fancy stuff and computers on our farm, and I said, all right, we've tried the pipe planner, we've tried the moisture sensors, we might as well buy some of these things. And to be honest with you, the first year, I know, if not the first 2 years, I didn't know how they worked and really didn't know how to use them. But I finally figured out, I think I understand now how to use a surge valve. Reduce labor for sure. I mentioned that I thought the guy was using them just to swap from one run to the other. That's worth something in itself. If you've got a lot of poly pipe and you've got 40 wells running, pumping water, if you can spend more time managing instead of unscrewing clamps and switching over poly pipe, I think your time's better spent. Didn't take long. We went side by side with Jason on those square 40-acre fields, and we reduced pumping time pretty significantly. So much I don't want to say, 40%.
I think it's 30, yes, high 30s.
Something like that, maybe it went 40. But this is on a 40-acre square field, pipe planter and a surge valve versus just my old guessing with what I think was a 5/8 buster, Save water, and I kind of know they get the job done better because what I can tell you about a surge valve is we put less water in the ditch with a surge valve as opposed to not a surge valve. Know what your flow rate is before you decide which surge valve to purchase. I made this error and bought quite a few of those 10-inch size surge valves, and I think if you've got more than 1,800 gallons of water somewhere up in there, you'll blow those things. It'll blow your plumbing out the bottom there. So I just buy the 12-inch surge valves with the computer on top. That's my story in a sense about my experiences with these tools with irrigation. They work. Like I said, I don't have any hard data to show you, but I'm continuing to. I'm not abandoning pipe planter. I'm continuing to buy more moisture sensors. I'm continuing to buy more surge valves, and this is the way we irrigate every field now. So the stuff, I can tell you it works, or I wouldn't be doing it. And here we are in a year with tighter margins where you think, I don't know if I want to spend the money on this, or I don't have time to do that. I would say those are the years that you really do need to do it because you're going to reduce your labor. You're going to increase your yields. That's the main thing we're shooting for, is making more bushels with less money. So, any questions about what I've had to say, or any questions? You can ask me if I don't know. We got the man back here. I was in a room with this thing last year, partnered up with somebody, and you could hear crickets chirping here. Nobody came, but with Kreutz back here, there's not an empty seat in the house.
This is huge, but
part of the year to check your flow on your well?
You know, we always check the flow. Well, when we started out, we were doing it in the spring. I think it does vary a little bit. I don't know on our farm that it varies enough to make a big difference. Jason?
Are you in Arkansas or Mississippi? Where are you in?
Central Louisiana.
Central Louisiana. So our recommendation is like, because it's more of an engineering tool, and so they're going to worst case scenario. So the highest flow possible is going to be right before we kick it on. So like late winter, early spring is when you want to get the flow, because everything's recharged. We're going to be pumping maximum at that time, so that's the ideal time to get it. You know what you've been telling guys? Like in Arkansas, I mean, they come like late irrigation window, if they went and got it then, it could be 300, 400, 500 gallons per minute less at the end of the irrigation season than it is the first. Remember that tool is controlling pressure and everything along that poly tube, and we want to get it as optimized as possible. So if we get it and we think our flow is 1,000 gallons per minute, because we measured late in the year and it's actually 1,700, you're going to flip the switch and it's going to blow up. So that's what I'm saying, you want to get it. We're probably going to measure the maximum flow capacity, which is going to be late winter, early spring.
On average, about 19% drop, but it can range anywhere from 6 to 50.
I would say just measuring it to begin with, no matter what time of year it is so much better than looking at your driller's report or some kind of crazy stuff we may have used to done. You know, I think that was about 2,000, put in 2,000 there and see what works.
And do you find that there's a correlation between nutrient removal and like how much water you put on the field as far as the drop in yield?
All right, so yeah, so the question was, that's what we think is going on. So the question was, do you think that you seem to see a correlation between nutrient removal and the amount of water you pump on the field? So we never went in and really measured that. What we think is going on with these early irrigation, particularly in our part of the world, you know, a lot of times we're throwing fertilizer out over the top. I used to do pesticide fade and transport type work, and I tell you, it's sitting on the surface, it's gone. It's gone. And so, again, we're cutting on, furrow irrigating, we got nitrogen laying in top, like after tassel shot or something like that, it's going off the tail ditch. I've not done the research on that, but I know, and the reason I say I think I know, I know how it works, the top millimeters where the transport's occurring, but we keep coming up 7 bushels off. I think a lot of it is us flushing nitrogen out of the system. I don't think for us it's leaching. Most of these soils are very tight. We got sensors. We don't see a lot of water moving deep. I think it's going out into the tail ditch. In some situations, we have it so wet, and again, I'm kind of going to the plant physiology side now, which is my weakest of all areas. But my corn specialists keep saying just tons of lift from out of the west and Midwest. You know, retardation. If we keep it that wet, it's not exploring as deep. That's cutting back on the nutrients. It's taking up this supplied in the profile itself, etc. We just stack it up before we're bad. So I think it's a combination of all those things. And we have to do a little bit more technical work to get at what is it, but I think it's a little bit of all of those. I think it's we're flushing nitrogen out of the system, mostly for us out the tail ditch. I think we do have some root retardation, which doesn't allow the plant roots to do all that they could do, mine all they can from the profile, water, nutrients, etc. That sets us up to perform bad later in the season. And then there's lots of literature for lots of other crops, I'm not going to say necessarily corn, that shows moderate drought stress early in its life cycle actually sets it up to perform better later in the year. Priming effect. So it's probably a lot of things going on. Long and skinny, lots of data showing that those early irrigation shots, if unnecessary, can cause us yield potential.
Jason, Mr. Mike was talking about going to 100 corn, beans. Share with them a little bit about well capacity, having to adjust that where.
All right, so the question like, hey, all right, so this is what, man, because I'm going to cuss bad about that, because I've got all this stuff, this crazy science mind, I don't convey it really well to you. So what do we got in the Mid-South? We've got one well, maybe 5 to 6 irrigation sets around, right? And I just said, put a sensor out there and don't let it get over 100. And so what happened on year one when people started using it, they put a sensor out there, it got to 100, they kicked it on. 7 days later, they got to the last sensor and it was at 150. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? We lost yield. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I just said? So my ideal solution around a wellhead is I'd like to have 2 sensors in there. I'd like to have one on the set I'm going to start with and one on the set I'm going to end. That way I always know I'm somewhere in between these 2 values, and we recommend going around with a portable sensor to kind of check if you see hot spots in the field. So this is what a real functionally could look like. I got one well, 6 irrigation sets, now I've got 2 sensors in there. One's in the field I'm gonna start on, one's in the field I'm gonna end on, and I know it's gonna be 5, 6, 7 days later, right? It's gonna be about 50, unfortunately. You're gonna kick it on and work around, and you gotta get to this last irrigation set before it gets to 100, and that's your spin. And again, that's when there's art involved in this, and we're stretching the technology far further than we would really like it to, but it is still expensive, right? Because most of you probably just gonna have one sensor around a wellhead, maybe. And so what you're gonna do is on this last one, the last day you're trying to get to it, you know it's sitting on 50, you know it can't go past 100, you're gonna turn it on in a field that you don't have one, you're gonna start marching across to it and try to get to it before it gets to 100. That make sense?
What about with soybeans when somebody tells you need to stress them a little bit earlier and then water them late?
So the question is, what about soybeans if somebody said you need to stress them a little bit earlier and then water them late? 'Cause this is what I've seen, is that we did a lot of that quote stress test, and we still got it going on. We're doing all kinds of crazy stress tests. The best I can tell is that, because we've got consultants telling us, hey, we know, Jason, we don't need to irrigate in those early flowering periods, but we do to jumpstart it and get it canopy and doing all these great things. So we try to mimic it. We've never seen all the great magical things that are supposed to be happening, right? As long as it don't go over 100 at that point, we've not had any issues, right? And we didn't, 100, below 100 was enough to let it go and do what they were, the magical things, canopy, do all that kind of stuff. But when you press the envelope real far, where I saw was like I could lose a lot of yield by stressing at different periods. Was R3 and R4 seem to be very sensitive, and R5 when I'm actually filling the pods, it was pretty dang sensitive. But the most sensitive seemed to me at 3 and 4. Again, all season long, keep it below 100. We didn't really seem to have that big of a problem. So long as skinny for me until we can really work out this technical stuff because what we're trying to work towards is a sliding rule. Hey, early reproductive, let it go to 130. Reproductive, knock it back down to 75. It's hard to do those kind of studies on that kind of scale, so right now we just keep coming back. We're doing them. It's going to take us years to get it. We don't have any problem with it get up to, just don't let it go past 100. What I haven't seen, like what I've seen in corn, over irrigating, hitting it at 50 and stuff like that, has not hurt me. But we don't really do this because our guys in Mississippi have already fixed on it. We're like, you're not going to hardly send an irrigation shot down below until it's flowering, right? Because they know pre-reproductive irrigate, where we're at these flatlands, you can kill it, right? And so we just kind of hardwired. I didn't have to fight them on that. So as long as we go reproductive before we begin really irrigating those soybeans, then we're probably not going to do good.
Does the pipe runner, I guess if you have multiple wells going into underground pipeline, that's always kind of been my.
All right, so yeah, man, we had this conversation the other day. Most of my experience, and you just can, because I'm not an engineer, there's several in the room, okay? But we had, most of the time, all those wells tied in there aren't doing what you think they're doing. Probably one was doing it anyway. I know you're gonna argue with me, but you need to get a dang flow meter, go out there and see, because you're gonna kick some rocks when you get done doing that. So what you're gonna have to do is like whatever voodoo you're gonna do, 2 wells on, 1 well on to run it in that thing, it's all gotta be the same every time.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Get those flows but you set yourself, and you're not the only one. We were talking about that. That's all over the prairie of Arkansas.
Two relists and 6
man.
wells going into about 2 miles of underground pipe over about 1,000 acres.
Yeah.
You might have 2 wells.
My recommendation, we were talking about this. I said, I think the only way when it's that convoluted, all kinds of junk running everywhere, is you need a flow meter on the well. I mean, on the riser, and make sure that or at some juncture where we know that we actually know we've designed this thing to be flowing at 1,200 gallons per minute through all these good things we want to do. It really is kind of close to that. I think we're out of time, gentlemen.
Do you do any of your studies under any extended pivot irrigation installed?
I don't have a pivot at the station, so I apologize. I'm 80% pro irrigated. We do have millions of dollars in contracts out right now.